All right, let's do this. David, let's do a gem, and then we're going to get to the pitch before we get to Waz. And then we got Slavoj Žižek. Man, this is just jam-packed
show.
Guys, this is a mistake of mine. We should do it much earlier in the episode. So patreon.com/TMBS. But we'll do the full pitch in a minute. Gem time.
Yeah, so I wanted to talk about this study that just came out. Y'all might have seen it, but I just want to give a little bit of context because it's really jarring. A study that just came out in the Journal of the American Medical Association titled Life Expectancy and Mortality Rates in the United States, 1959 to 2017, found something very frightening, that the United States has the worst midlife mortality rate among 17 high-income countries, despite leading the world in per capita spending on healthcare. And that's from USA Today. So this is something that's very frightening because, we talk a lot about, lack of access to healthcare. But this very specific increase in mortality rates for people in their prime working ages is certainly very frightening, because it certainly highlights people not having access to healthcare, but it also means that, one, people are under immense amounts of stress, they're forced into unhealthy habits because of their workload, and there's the really frightening and sad reality of deaths of despair, where people don't have economic options and they're just so crushed by debt and just the weight of living that they're falling into alcoholism, suicide, drug overdoses, and it's becoming such a factor that we're actually seeing the life expectancy in the United States declining. I mean, really imagine that when we're talking about a country that has now exceeded any other nation in history for the amount of wealth that's created here, that life expectancy is actually going down. I mean, it means that we have a fundamentally broken system, and it's a really sharp break off here. Like, for most of United States history, life expectancy has been rising. So for the past 60 years, life expectancy has been rising. But in 2014, it started to decrease. And the major contributor to that has been this increase in mortality from specific causes like drug overdoses, suicides, organ system diseases, and a lot of these come from alcoholism, drug overdose, smoking, obesity, unhealthy habits that people use to cope with the pain of getting by. So from 1999 to 2017, midlife mortality from drug overdoses spiked 386.5%. I mean, we're talking a massive shift, in the health of people and also their own mental well-being. Deaths from hypertensive diseases increased by 78.9%, and those linked to obesity increased by 114%. And suicides, unfortunately, have also risen 38% and have actually climbed to 50.9% amongst those between the ages of 55 and 64. So yes, certainly, not having access to healthcare is a major problem for people. But when you look at the causes of a lot of these deaths, they really are driven by the overall stress and pain and suffering that a lot of people are dealing with. I mean, a lot of this has to do with the fact that if you have financial hits in this country, your life really can be ruined. Right. We don't have access to any kind of social safety net. Most families have just been completely decimated by the financial crisis. Meanwhile, the wealthy have been bailed out. All of their money has come back, but people who lost their wealth that was in houses, which for most working class people is the only wealth that they have, they still haven't recovered, and it's been getting much worse. And unfortunately, it makes sense when you look at the reality. There's a Brookings Institute study that just came out that 44% of American workers between the ages of 18 and 64 are working low-wage jobs, which they defined as people whose median incomes are $18,000 a year. So when we talk about, one, the state of the economy today and also questions of employment numbers, we really need to recognize that it's not just enough to pursue full employment. We really need to be talking about the quality of these jobs. And so many American people, as that study just showed, are working full time and they can't get by. And our system has become so predatory on poor people that the stress that they're dealing with is literally killing them. So we talk a lot about capitalism, but and how horrific it is and how inhumane it is. But for most working working people, we really are going through a life and death struggle, not just in our fight for healthcare, but also just for a decent life where we can live healthy lives, surrounded by community and people we love. People are losing out on that opportunity, and we really need to fight as hard as we can, not only to fight unemployment, but also to increase the living standards of all American workers and all workers across the globe. That comes from decommodifying as much of life as possible. That comes from fighting for wage increases. That comes from higher unionization. And it also comes from making it so clear to as many people as possible that capitalism not only is a system that extracts value from our lives, it actually extracts our life force from us and is killing people all across this country.
Exactly. You just watched a Michael Brooks show video. Subscribe to get them all. Why wouldn't you? Don't be foolish. Click subscribe below and become a patron as well. Patreon.com/TMBS. Thanks, everybody.